What do we make of Oklahoma starting a freshman at Jordan-Hare Stadium on Saturday?
You are Locked On Auburn, your daily podcast on the Auburn Tigers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, welcome on into Locked On Auburn, your daily Auburn Tigers podcast. I'm your host, Zac Blackerby. Thank you so much for making Locked On Auburn your first listen every single day. Today's show is a crossover show. I had a great conversation with John Williams and Jay Smith of Locked On Sooners. Here it is.
And Zach, we're going to start with you because the Auburn quarterback situation is as in flux, maybe more so than the Oklahoma Sooners quarterback situation, as they've gone back and forth from Payton Thorne to Hank Brown. So just a few days ahead of game day, where do you see this going for the Auburn Tigers?
Yeah, if I had to guess, it will be Payton Thorne on Saturday. I don't think that's what I would do, and I don't think that's what's best for the football program as a whole. But I do think Hugh Freeze switched back to Payton Thorne at halftime against Arkansas after Hank Brown threw 3 picks in that first half in his first SEC start. So to me, I think it is Payton Thorne, but I think there's a lot of pros and a lot of cons for each of them. I think the fan base is kind of split on that, but right now, if I had to guess, the Sooners will be defending Payton Thorne on Saturday.
And so what is it about the difference that Hugh Freeze might be seeing in the two quarterbacks that he might go to Payton Thorne?
Yeah, I mean, I guess like Payton Thorne offers more of a threat to run, and Hank Brown is your true pocket passer. However, we did see him move a little bit in the first half against Arkansas last week, but he's a veteran guy. Payton Thorne's been playing college football for a long time. Hank Brown's a redshirt freshman. In a game where you're going up against a defense that I think is pretty dang good in the Oklahoma Sooners defense, I think you want the older guy there. That's probably where Hugh Freeze is thinking. But to me, like, and a coach can't think this way, guys, but a guy who does a podcast can, and the fan base can think about the future. The future. Payton Thorne's out of eligibility this year. You've already lost 2 games to teams that you didn't think that you should lose to going into the season, losing a game to Cal, losing a game to Arkansas. At what point do you start thinking, okay, like it's close as far as who offers more this year? Why not go for the guy who's going to be on the roster next year when everybody kind of internally within the Auburn football program has kind of circled 2025 to be the year? Like, let's go ahead and invest in the guys that are going to be on the 2025 roster next year. So that's why I'm a little hesitant. That's why I think it should be Hank Brown when it's all said and done. But Hugh Freeze can't think that way. Hugh Freeze has to win this year. And so obviously he's going to go with the guy who he thinks can help him with that. So Payton Thorne offers a little bit more versatility, and I mean, he's a more experienced player. So that's probably what Hugh Freeze is thinking.
Yeah, Jay, the experience factor is going to be a little bit different for Oklahoma this weekend. Where are they heading in their quarterback situation?
Yeah, Sooners decided to go ahead and ride with the young hand, true freshman Michael Hawkins Jr., the 4-star quarterback out of Frisco Emerson. And because of that, now Oklahoma feels like they've got somebody that can put a little bit of a spark. Now, coming out of fall camp, that's all you heard about, right? And spring camp was Michael Hawkins was turning some heads. Now, granted, the fact that, he's a true freshman had everybody at pause. But because he was doing just damage and gashing and running through the defense, everyone's feeling like, he probably should have gave him a shot. But Jackson Arnold, this entire offense was looped around him, and it just seemed like he did not want to make a decision. And his decision, and when he did make one, it was always a little too late. And at quarterback, you got to make them pretty quickly. And so you got some costly turnovers, especially in Tennessee, right? You can't fumble the ball after the defense causes a fumble inside of enemy territory the next play, right? It didn't even take like 4 plays. It took 1. And that, to me, is really an indictment of the confidence of the quarterback at the time. I think he'll get some of it back if he ever gets an opportunity again. But honestly, I think Michael Hawkins seizes this position. I don't think he lets it go.
Did this move surprise you guys at all? I mean, Jay, I know you and I have done a few shows together, this offseason. One of them was at Media Days. And, I mean, it sounded like the Oklahoma contingent was super high on Jackson Arnold. Are y'all surprised y'all are at this point offensively?
Honestly, yeah, right? Jackson Arnold played 5 games last season as a true freshman, mostly in mop-up duty or whatnot, but against FBS schools. He comes in against Arkansas State, first game of his career, right? Goes 11 for 11 for 140 yards. Now, it's Arkansas State. Arkansas State was also a bowl team last year. So it's not like he was going up against a team that won like one game all season long. They made it to a bowl game. So you're like, okay, you're starting to see some stuff. He comes in relief duty against BYU to help seal the game when Dylan Gabriel came out in the second half. Played a whole second half against BYU in BYU and looked darn good. Now, everyone has their questions about that Arizona game where, he had like 4 turnovers in that one. But honestly, if we don't fumble the ball in the red zone twice, we're up 31-13 in that game and no one's talking about that game anymore. It's just, it felt like a massive switch the moment this season started that he just didn't have the confidence of going against our defense. He didn't have the confidence going against the opposition. To me, and me and John talked about this a couple times, but to me, it felt like he had a little bit of PTSD because of our defense being so tough on him throughout camp. I don't know if it's not an excuse, but it's just an evaluation. I'm wondering, what about him switch-wise turned off?
John, let me ask you this, because a big storyline around Oklahoma, at least from the outside looking in all offseason, was you're replacing an entirely new offensive line and you're throwing a quarterback back there that didn't have a whole lot of experience. Like, that situation doesn't change just because you change your quarterbacks. I mean, is this a situation, especially on the road against an Auburn defense that actually has statistically been pretty good when you account for how many extra plays they're having to play? Excuse me, guys, because the offense keeps turning it over. Is this the right time to make the switch?
They had to make a switch. If everything that we were hearing out of fall camp and out of spring ball was that Michael Hawkins was looking really, really good, and you have a quarterback as talented as Jackson Arnold is, that is being so loose and carefree with the football, not staying within the offense, not playing within the offense, you have to make a switch. There have been times during the season that Jackson Arnold has had fairly good protection. The interception that he threw this last Saturday, he had great protection. He just, I don't know, he just made a really poor decision with the ball. And so the coaching staff is basically at this point where it's like, okay, you're not playing within the offense. You're being too carefree with the football. I mean, he threw a pass that wasn't even in the play design, that it turned out to be a lateral and then turned out to be a fumble that, Tennessee recovered in Oklahoma's half of the field. So it was one of those where the kid was just so outside of what they were expecting him to do.
Yeah.
I think they lost maybe some trust in him at this point. Not to say he can't earn it back or he can't get it back, but then to turn to Michael Hawkins and, initially, like, he takes over the last drive of the first half and he kind of looks the part. He's quick with what he's trying to do. Even though there might be some pressure, he's quick to move in the pocket. He's able to find space and buy time. And then in the third quarter, fourth quarter, even though in the third quarter they punted all 3 times, again, some promising signs. And then in the fourth quarter, you lead 2 touchdown drives where he's quick with the football. He gets it out fast. He makes really good decisions. He's throwing really, really nice balls. And they're actually showing some signs of life. So it's not surprising if you go just based on what you saw on Saturday. I mean, that's all I have to look at because I couldn't be out at practice and I couldn't see what they were doing in practice. If you look just at Saturday, it was the right move to make. But also, if you take into account all the rumblings that we heard all offseason, I mean, it might have been just that the coaching staff has more trust and faith in what Michael Hawkins can do for them with this team right now. Because, like you mentioned, the offensive line is a big turnover. They've had injuries up front that they've had to deal with in addition to the big turnover that they've had. So there's a lot of position influx right now up front. And so you got to find a guy that's going to get the ball out quick and move quick.
Yeah, it's interesting how – go ahead, Jay.
I was going to say, just to add to that really quick, and you're right, Zach. We talked about that at SC Media Days with the offensive line and being young. I don't think Oklahoma expected to have 13 variations of offensive linemen playing either with all the injuries that we've kind of dealt with. Right, that's a lot of switching that you're going through. Jackson Arnold had 4 different centers in his first 3 games, right? So it's just because of injury. We lost 3
That's
centers
insane.
quickly.
That's crazy.
And if that doesn't happen, I don't think it's as bad as what the offensive line looks like. But, yeah, it was a lot of switching and moving that wasn't expected. Oh, yeah, you lose your top 4 wide receivers, the guys you're used to throwing the ball to. That kind of hurts, too.
Yeah, no, that's insane. That's insane. Somebody in Norman needs to ask, okay, why are all these guys still getting hurt? That'd be the question I'm asking. Something that's interesting about the Auburn offense is like statistically, it's pretty good, especially in explosive plays. The issue is just they're turning the ball over at an historic rate, which to me, I don't think is going to continue to happen. Now, are they going to be able to like just suddenly take care of the football and not have any turnovers for the rest of the season? No, that's not what I'm saying. But I don't think it's fair to expect Auburn to turn the ball over 5 times in every relevant game that they play. Like, that's insane. That's like crazy. So if Auburn just turns it over 2 or 3 times against Cal or 2 or 3 times against Arkansas, they win those games and possibly by multiple scores. So to me, like when you look at it, Auburn's offense, like it's not bad. It's moving the football. It's just whenever they get in the red zone, they turn it over. And if you can figure out how to fix that, like I actually think this team could be decent, but that's a big if. That is a big, big if. And to me, that's the thing that's going to impact who wins on Saturday.
Yeah, I think after week 1, neither of us or none of us would have been sitting here thinking going into week 5 that our quarterback situation and offensive situations were going to be where they are. Yeah. But on the bright side, we do have some good defenses to talk about, and we'll do that next here on Locked On Crossover. Today's episode is brought to you by Roy. Have you heard of Roy? Well, hey, now's an opportunity in the NIL game. Roy is a new platform that lets fans make contributions directly to their favorite athletes. Download Roy for iOS or Android and enter referral code Locked On, and you'll automatically be entered into a sweepstakes to win $5,000 cash. No purchase necessary, void where prohibited. This week, we've selected for Locked On Sooners, Robert Spears Jennings as the player of the week. If you were impressed as we were with his performance on Saturday, you can show him some love too. Just hop on Roy and throw him a few bucks. If everyone pitches in just $10, it adds up fast for Robert Spears Jennings. Now you have the chance to show your appreciation for his standout performance this week, as well as what he'll continue to bring to your program. Get off the sidelines and into the NIL game with Roy.
Yeah, and I want to tell you about our friends at LinkedIn Jobs. Look, we all know that depth is important. We talk about that with the Oklahoma offensive line. You want to always make sure you've got a plan with whatever happens on the field, but it's also that way with running your small business. And LinkedIn Jobs is the place for that. It's not just a job board. LinkedIn helps you hire professionals you can't find anywhere else, even though even those who aren't actively searching for a new job, you're going to be able to target with our friends at LinkedIn Jobs. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. That is linkedin.com/lockedoncollege to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply.
All right, so let's look on the bright side a little bit. We got some defense to talk about. And hey, defense is a lot of fun if you're willing to let it be. So Zach, talk about what's made Auburn's defense so good to start the year.
Yeah, well, I mean, the issue, and that's what's like Auburn fans are wanting to talk about the most, is not getting off the field on 3rd and long situations. Outside of that, this defense has been pretty solid, especially with the amount of plays that they've been asked to play because the offense keeps turning it over at an alarming rate. The pass rush has gotten better. I didn't like how they started the season off, but Jalen McLeod, the former App State defender 2 seasons ago, I mean, he's been exceptional, especially over the last 2 games. You're starting to see Kieran Crawford, the transfer from Arkansas State, become better and better and kind of get more acclimated to the speed of the SEC. I think those 2 guys have been pretty solid. But all in all, like you've seen glimpses of a lot of defensive standouts for the Auburn Tigers. K and Lee on the back end at corner. You've seen him have moments. Jaron Thompson, the transfer from Texas, he's had moments. And so to me, like this defense, I think does a few different things pretty well. It's just consistency, specifically on 3rd down, has been a little tricky. But statistically and just overall points, considering the situation that the offense has put them in, it's actually, I mean, they've been pretty impressive.
And for Oklahoma, Jay, we've seen a lot of guys really, really step their game up. But overall, what has been your biggest takeaway from this defense through the first 4 weeks of the season?
Not only are the defensive linemen and the edges getting a lot of pressure, the linebackers being everywhere, Robert Spears Jennings is killing it. That safety has been in every single spot that you would hope you would want he would be at in order to make some big plays. He had 1 bad play against Houston, and that was when Houston got their 1 deep pass initially throughout the game. And you saw, because it was right after the Woody Washington interception that was called back, and they said it was pass interference, even though he was going after the ball with the wide receiver. They didn't get the play out there fast enough. Robert was not in the right spot. After that, he said, I got this. Won't happen again. Since then, he's been one of the highest graded safeties in college football. He's everywhere. He forced that fumble on Nico on a safety blitz, got right there, put his helmet right in his elbow. Ball just flies. Gets us the ball to the 5-yard line. We're not going to talk about what happened afterwards. What we're going to talk about is that this secondary has done a lot of better job than I even anticipated, right? Nico wasn't even able to throw for 200 yards in this game. And they were taking some shots deep. They were trying to, but the pressure that the offensive line and the edges are getting, man. Yeah. They're doing a really good job. I think that's going to be what's going to be the biggest game decider going into Auburn. If this defensive line can keep pressure on the quarterbacks and make them move faster than they want to, hopefully we can get those turnovers going again.
Yeah, I 100% agree with that. I mean, I think whoever pressures the quarterback more has a great chance to win this one, especially when you look at the context of, okay, freshman starting on the road versus, Payton Thorne or Hank Brown, whoever gets to start. Obviously, if you pressure those guys, they're not going to be as efficient. Which matchup do you guys like more? Auburn's pass rush against Oklahoma's beat up offensive line, or Oklahoma's defensive line and pass rush against an Auburn offensive line has actually been pretty solid so far this year?
I mean, I think Auburn's going to have an edge against Oklahoma's offensive line. It's not been consistent enough down to down, game to game. We're still trying to get healthy, trying to get consistent, trying to find more cohesion. As Jay mentioned, 13 different iterations of this offensive line, and that's going to make it really difficult to do that. I think where Oklahoma can put Payton Thorne and the Auburn offense into some bad situations is because their run defense has been so good. They held the Tennessee Volunteers run offense in check for most of that game. They averaged just 2.9 yards per carry for the game. Even if you take the sack totals out of that, it's 3.4 yards per rush. Remember, Dylan Sampson was averaging like 8 yards per carry. Deshaun Bishop was averaging like 10 yards per carry going into the Oklahoma-Tennessee game, and the defensive line really stood up. So that's what it's going to be for Oklahoma. Stop the run, which Auburn's got a really good run game. Stop the run, force Payton Thorne into some long down and distances, and then tee off.
Yeah, and that's what Oklahoma did. I mean, Auburn runs a lot of RPO stuff, so Arkansas defensive coordinator Travis Williams walked an extra guy into the box, which kind of triggers that RPO to be a pass. And then it's like, all right, there's going to be guys open. We're just going to trust that you won't see them in time. And obviously that worked, and it resulted in turnovers. If I'm defending Auburn, that's what I'm doing until Payton Thorne or Hank Brown proves that they can adjust to that quickly. To me, I think Oklahoma is going to do the same thing. Hey, as far as the beat up Oklahoma offensive line, like is the group that's projected to start this Saturday, is it the same group that has started together like last week? Like, will there be any level of cohesion, or are they changing it up even week to week?
It's probably going to be another change because we get another guy healthy. Yes, there's another guy healthy. Troy Everett. He was backed up left guard as well as back. He was the starting center initially. Okay. And he hurt his knee in spring ball, had to have surgery. That's when we went into the portal, got Branson Hickman. So Hickman's playing. He's still banged up. He's probably about 70% right now. But Troy Everett actually has been suiting up and practicing with some ones the last couple of weeks. He's been getting some plays. And the anticipation is he's going to come in and probably play left guard. He's got his body up to about 320 and some change. So he's a nice size at the guard, but he's also a center. So there's a good chance that he ends up starting at left guard with the rest of the players who will still be the same. The only position will probably change is guard. And hopefully that adds a little bit of more chemistry and cohesion because Troy Everett knows the plays and knows the calls because he's, a natural center. That's probably what we're anticipating because we thought he was going to play this week against Tennessee, and he did not. Okay. He suited up and warmed up and stretched, but he didn't end up playing. If he comes back, then I anticipate that's be your next switch. I'm just hoping that we don't have any more injuries, knock on wood.
That's wild. I mean, that is such y'all said it was how many different versions of the O-line have played?
At least 13. I think there might be more.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, to me, that's what this game's all about.
Yeah, so they've been missing their projected starting right tackle for several games. They've missed their projecting starting left guard, their starting center. They've had to move their guy that started at left guard to left tackle. They've had to move their left tackle to right tackle. It's just it's been a mess. And that doesn't even include the wide receiver mess that Oklahoma's in, where they're down 4 of their top 5 wide receivers for the next month or more. Jalil Farouk is going to be the closest to get back, and he's 6 to 8 weeks out from a couple weeks ago. So it's just been a mess on the injury front for the Oklahoma Sooners. We're going to talk keys to the game in this one coming up next. Who's got the edge? Where do they? We'll find out coming up.
Hey, NFL and college fans, you can start the season with a big return on FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. Right now, this Oklahoma line is still sitting at 2.5 as Oklahoma favorites. Yeah, I'm shocked too. But the over-under is sitting at 45.5. So that's something you can definitely go check out and put something on. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, or you want to, you decide that, I'm going to put all my money on Oklahoma, bet responsibly, view live play-by-play, or so much more on the same page where you are placing your bets. You'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. That's over there at FanDuel.com.
Jay, what's the key to the game for the Oklahoma Sooners?
Getting pressure on the Auburn quarterbacks, right? Keep the run defense going the way that it's been. We're literally leaning on this defense now 95%. I love Michael Hawkins. He's a freshman quarterback. He's also a freshman quarterback. So for us, it's going to be all about getting pressure and causing more turnovers, right? I mean, Zac mentioned Auburn's one of the biggest problems has been turning over the ball. One of the best things that Oklahoma's done is turning over the ball, right? We've caused a lot of turnovers. I think we're -7. We're +7 in the turnover margins. We've recovered 8 fumbles this season, #1 in the country. And it's not been like just punch outs, right? It's been a lot of just hard hits and a ball flying out. We're not ripping the ball. We're hitting really, really hard and hitting at the right point. So since that's the case, that's what Oklahoma's going to have to do in order to be successful. Get Michael Hawkins a lot of short yardage and go from there.
Yeah, I think getting Michael Hawkins in a rhythm early is going to be really, really key. Going into Jordan-Hare Stadium.
There it is.
Whip a bunch over all of my different pronunciations of it, and I apologize.
Jordan-Hare, that's it.
I'm working on it. Okay, Jordan-Hare Stadium. You heard? That's going to be a key factor. But I think, listen, Auburn has got a tough defense. Where does it start up front? What's the key to the game for Auburn, Zac?
Yeah, the key to the Auburn, I mean, big picture, it's turnovers. Like, try to fix you've been plagued with just turning the ball over at an incredible rate. So you've got to fix that. As far as like a matchup situation, you need somebody on Auburn's defensive front to step up and take advantage of this Oklahoma offensive line. And is it a freshman? Malik Blockton is a name that I can't get out of my brain this week. Philip Bleedy, the guy that they picked up via the transfer portal from Indiana. He had a really, really good game. Jason Jones had a good game this past week at defensive tackle. And then you already mentioned the edge guys, Jalen McLeod and Kieron Crawford. And then the best player on this team on defense, arguably, is Keldrick Falk, who, former 5-star second-year player. He's one of those defensive end / defensive tackles when they scoot him inside. So you need one of those guys to step up and make some plays. And if one or two of those guys do that, I really like Auburn's chances this weekend.
We've gotten through this whole episode without talking about Jarques Hunter. He's been special again this year. What's he doing that's making him so good, and how can Oklahoma defend him?
Yeah, I mean, considering the limited touches that he's gotten, he has been electric. No question, no question about it. I think that's one way to fix the turnover issues is you give him the football more, and you figure out more true run plays, and you kind of feature Jarques Hunter, who is a special player, but he's kind of been limited because of the workload that he's been asked to carry. I mean, with a lot of these RPOs, if the read triggers them to throw the football, then, obviously Jarques Hunter's probably not getting it. So to me, like, that is a big part of this. That's a good way to make some of these quarterbacks comfortable, as you can establish the run. Jarques Hunter, when he does get the ball, he has been great this year. Other than that one fumble against Cal, he's been exceptional.
Yeah, Jay, Oklahoma's going through the same situation with their RPO game right now, huh?
Yeah, 100%. We're going to scrap that. I hope we just go ahead and get rid of it and we need to play some power football. That's what we got to do. Just go ahead and just wad it up. Throw it away for now. And at some point, you could probably come back to it once you get more cohesion at the offensive line. It's tough when everybody's trying to figure out all the calls over and over and over again, right? Especially when they're being moved from position to position to position. So now that we're starting to see more snaps under everybody, the experience will get there. I think this line will be fine long term. But right now, it's the biggest problem has been the decisions of who you need to go block, right? It's all based upon inexperience. Whenever they're on point, we've seen beautiful, clean pockets. Quarterbacks got time. Heck, quarterbacks scramble and get some yards because they had like 6 seconds before they needed to throw it. That's going to be what's most critical. So sitting there, grinding the film and understanding when you see this happen, you always go for the first guy in front of you. Don't be trying to wait for nobody else to come through. That's the running back's job.
Do y'all think it's fair to say the first to 20 wins on Saturday?
I was
fair?
thinking the first to 10.
I think it's going to be that low scoring.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to be very. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. Well, I was thinking 17, but I thought that was too harsh. But clearly, y'all would have been okay with that too.
No, I mean, I think 20 is reasonable. I think.
Yeah.
Last week I predicted Tennessee, Oklahoma to be 23-20 OU. I felt like it was going to be a low scoring game. It turned out to be a lot of really due to Oklahoma's offensive inefficiencies.
Right.
But it's the same thing this week. You have two passing offenses that just aren't necessarily thriving right now. Oklahoma's run game has been non-existent since week 1. It's really going to come down to the defense. And I think Oklahoma needs to find a defensive or special teams score in this game to give them a good shot at winning it, because the offense, listen, I like Michael Hawkins. I think he's a really, really good quarterback. I think he's got a chance to be something special because of his dual threat nature.
Yeah.
Going into Auburn, going into Jordan-Hare Stadium and asking him to carry the load for you is not a great recipe for success. When Oklahoma hasn't had a good run game, it's affected everything else in the offense. But if they can get him going early, if they can get him efficient early, get him some confidence built up, have a good drive to start the game, I think it could go a long way to helping Oklahoma's offense find some confidence.
Yeah.
The rest of the game. But so much of it's going to come down to the defensive side of the ball. Who produces the most turnovers? Who creates the most negative plays in the backfield? It's going to come down to that for Oklahoma especially.
Yeah, in a game where so few points are projected to be scored in this one, turnovers are so big, and they're always big in games. But in a game like this, where points are going to be at a premium and field position could be at a premium, I just don't trust Auburn's offense right now. And until they show me a game or two where they can take care of the football, I think this is who they are right now. What you've done in these games against teams that are, in similar level of competition than you, Cal and Arkansas, that's who you are. That's who you are. And so right now, I expect Auburn to turn the football over against Oklahoma, whether that's Auburn shooting themselves in the foot or Oklahoma being opportunistic. It doesn't matter. Shows up the same in the box score, and it shows up the same in the stat sheet and on the scoreboard. I think Oklahoma wins this game because of one or two really bad turnovers that give Oklahoma good field position.
So that wide receiver room there at Auburn, when the ball actually comes out, it appears you've got some solid guys, man. Who's some of the key guys that we got to pay attention to? Because I already know about Cam Coleman. Cam
Coleman is special, the true freshman for sure. KeAndre Lambert-Smith, the Penn State transfer, has been the guy that's kind of been that's been scoring almost at will, and I think he had 150 plus yards in the game against Arkansas. A few big plays there. So KeAndre Lambert-Smith is a big one, no question about it. He is Auburn's wide receiver 1 right now.
Yeah, Oklahoma gave us some big plays last week against Tennessee. If they can limit some of those big plays and force them to play in the short to intermediate part of the field, I think that's going to favor the Sooners. Well, that's going to do it for this special Locked On crossover edition featuring Locked On Auburn's Zac Blackerby and myself, John Williams, and Jay Smith from Locked On Sooners. Thanks so much for tuning in and making Locked On Auburn and Locked On Sooners your first listen every single day. Subscribe to the respective shows wherever you get your podcasts. And for your second listen, you got to go check out Locked On College Football, from NIL deals to never-ending conference realignment rumors and everything going on in this crazy college football season. Spencer McLaughlin has you covered. Find Locked On College Football on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. But hey, until next time, we'll continue to break down this game. Go watch time when we get to meet again, at least in 2025. He's Zac Blackerby. I'm John Williams. He's Jay Smith.